Okay, so I'm getting started opening this box. When I first got my Evolve box, there was a broken eyedropper in it. So I sent an email to the team and they very kindly sent me a replacement eyedropper, which is what I just received in that box there. And I'm getting started on the second gradient assignment, which is assignment 3 in the overall block 1 of Evolve. But before I do that, I decided to cut up the throwaway paint palette thing that they gave us. We actually have 40 sheets of this stuff, but I got a reusable clear palette. And something that Piper said was that if I wanted to use that, I could take the gray paper and put it underneath a clear palette so that I still have that light gray color underneath that'll help me to see the values correctly of the 4 different types of paint. So I decided to just do that, and then as you can see, I split it into our 4 sections. We've got extreme shadow, moderate light, and extreme light going from left to right. And then I just tape it down with a little bit of painter's tape, and then we pull out another sheet of canvas paper. I tried going from the back, but apparently that doesn't work. So took a piece of canvas paper from the top, and then it's time to copy or trace the gradient paper again. So I'm using that sheet of paper that they gave us, and then here's this charcoal paper that I've been using since the first assignment. Just tape it down and then put the tracer thing, model, whatever you call it, on top and tape that down as well. I'm actually kind of making this commentary video, whatever you call it, several months after having finished this assignment, so it's kind of interesting to see what I did back then. I recorded this stuff, but then I didn't actually create the video until now. Anyways, mixing the paint. When I first started doing, the very first time I did this, I went way out of the lines, but I'm getting a little bit better about staying in the lines. And now, because we're doing gradients, it's very important to mix the admixtures in between. And it always looks like I put too little paint in there, but then I add more as the time goes by, so it's okay. What I'm doing is I'm mixing those 2 shades together, and then I'm checking to make sure that the admixture is halfway between the extreme shadow and the moderate shadow by checking the color on the back of my palette knife against the extreme shadow to make sure it's lighter than the extreme shadow, but then darker than the moderate shadow, and that value should be as much in the middle as I can. I feel like sometimes mixing paint and finding that halfway value is a little bit like musicians who are tuning instruments, trying to make sure that the tone is exactly 440 hertz or whatever the number is. I think it's 440 for the A. Yeah. Anyways, so you make 3 admixtures between the 4 shades. You end up with 7 different colors. And then we've got 3 rows of these gradients that we have to do, starting with, on the very left, we've got, let's see, extreme shadow, obviously, on the left, and then it's supposed to blend into, is it moderate shadow? Well, let's take a look. I was really slow in the beginning. I was trying to be extremely accurate on those corners and lines because I felt like my very first squares assignment, I was a little messy. So, yeah. Oh no, it's extreme shadow and moderate light. So in the middle, between extreme shadow and moderate light, we have moderate shadow, and that's the shade that we use for the buffer. And actually, they didn't say that I could or couldn't do this, but I think I saw in a student example where they did the gradient popping out of the box a little bit, so that's what I did here. And then we take the admixture between the extreme shadow and moderate shadow and use that to kind of soften the edge between those 2 shades, and that's how you do the gradient. It's still a little bit, I mean, it's not a little bit, it's obviously very amateurish because this is only my 2nd time doing gradients, and I think I was a little over careful. One thing that I did that wasn't quite accurate was I think I probably didn't use quite enough paint on the brush and I kept wiping it off, and so I would end up like not blending the colors very well. I think I did better at having a thicker buffer, which is what the instructors recommended. The last time I did a gradient, it was way too, the middle buffer was way too skinny, so they told me that that should be thicker. So I did that, but yeah, I don't know if these gradients still turned out to, yeah, yeah, still need a lot of work. Even to this day, right now, I still need a lot of work on the gradients. The gradients are critical in art, I realized, because they're what gives pictures and images that three-dimensional look. And if you do them well, you can make your paintings look as if they're not paintings. And I have definitely not gotten to that level yet. But anyways, so then the second row of gradients is moderate shadow and extreme light. So the buffer in between is moderate light. And then we use the two admixtures to the left and to the right of that palette that right here to blend the left edge and the right edge. So it's the principle, the technique is fairly simple to understand, but not always easy to execute. I think this just takes a lot of practice because this is a physical activity. It's not like once you understand mentally how it works, then you've got it. You've got to learn your hands, your fingers, your arm. It has to learn how it feels to hold the brush correctly, to blend the colors correctly. And I think that's the reason why we have the opportunity to do this so many times. As you can see, the gradients on the very right hand side are between moderate shadow and moderate light. Oh, I flipped it upside down to practice blending from a different angle. The other day I was watching this YouTube video. I don't remember who put it out there, but he was talking about how there's lots of different ways to paint, and a lot of beginning painters don't know this. For example, when you're holding a paintbrush, we tend to hold it like a pencil because we're used to holding pencils, and pencils are shaped the same way as paintbrushes. But he said, you don't always have to necessarily hold a paintbrush exactly like a pencil. Like, think about all the different ways you can hold a paintbrush. You can hold it like very close to the tip or farther away from the tip or even farther away from the tip. You can hold it like at 90 degrees, or you can change the degree at which your paintbrush is touching the paper. You can move the paintbrush using your wrist, using your elbow, or even using your shoulder. And then he's like, and when you can combine all these different kinds of movements to create different effects, I suppose is what he was saying. There's a lot I still need to learn about art, but I love how the Evolve Artist program is so systematic. It's like Suzuki for artists, for people who want to learn art and they're starting from nothing. Evolve is like the Suzuki method, I would say. Yeah, so as you can see, my gradients, I think they're better than the first time I did them, but they're still, you can still kind of see that there's like a line between some of the shades, and you don't want that. You want those 2-3 colors to really blend from left to right accurately. And then here's a really kind of weird slideshow that I put together of all of the shades, and that's what they look like finally. And then this is the two compared, the one on the top and the one on the bottom. Here's what I did with the leftover paintings. This is what the teachers do to kind of evaluate your art and give you some comments. And if you want to learn more, you can check out bit.ly/skyart. So